Well, that was a videography fail. My cell phone camera microphone was expecting another gunshot, so it set itself at that level. So I started talking, but unfortunately the microphone didn't pick me up. So all my takes were worthless. So we'll do our intro here. So, hello, it's Steve from Corporate Gone Country. I'm an ex-corporate guy just trying to do country things. And the country thing that we're doing today is we're going to show you around a shooting range that we built on our property. Now, I planned this shooting range out with my corporate logic, but I also built it with my lack of skills and lack of knowledge of being a country person. So I think the planning turned out pretty well. The construction of it turned out kind of rudimentary, but again, we're just trying to do country things. So there's three main elements to the shooting range. We have the shooting station here with a pistol side on the left and a rifle side on the right. And if we swing downrange, you'll see we have some pistol targets there and then a pistol backstop right there. And then further downrange, it's hard to see, but there is a rifle backstop at 100 yards, and we'll go take a closer look at that. So here we are looking inside the shooter station. You can see it's pretty basic construction with pressure treated lumber and wood screws. We put decomposed granite on the floor and tamped it down to provide a nice surface for people to walk on. We have these posts sunk in concrete so they don't work their way out in a high wind. And as we walk through, you can see we have two rifle shooting stations with our rifle backstop 100 yards downrange. Then we move into the pistol side. You can see both those pistols are unloaded there, even though I'm the only one on the range today. We want to observe all safety practices. And then we've got a pistol backstop here at about 20 yards, and you can see some gong targets for pistols in front of that. Here's our high-tech pistol backstop. It's simply a wooden frame with a bunch of logs built into it. You can see that I put some rebar in the front, which has obviously not a very fat profile, so hopefully bullets will miss it, but every now and then a shot gets to one of those rebars, so I expect them to break pretty soon, and I'll have to replace them. But they're just put in there with U-bars that you can see at the top of that wooden rail. And there's what the inside of the wooden box frame looks like. So I had some conduit left over from another project, and I simply cut it to suitable lengths, made two little tripods for each end, and then had a surplus feeder leg go between the two. Then I bought some nuts and bolts from Home Depot and Lowe's and used them to attach these chains and also to attach the gong targets so they hang pretty nicely. And one of the things that was necessary was put that intermediate support in the middle. Otherwise, this thing had the capacity to tip over. This is a photo of the target stand and bullet backstop at 100 yards from the shooting station. We obviously use this for rifle shooting. The metal angle frame holding the targets is something I salvaged from the back of the house. It was just holding scrap wood, so I just repurposed it. Paper targets are hung using binder clips that you can get from any office supply store, and they're clipped onto a cable that's strung across the frame. You can just put one clip on each corner of the paper target and it holds it really well. This is the back of it. It's simply a wood frame, and I've piled some logs that I cut down from trees here in there, and then that is the back of it. And you can see that the gong targets hang about the height of those back logs. But then as I go around the front, I went and put another row of logs vertical, so I've got them cross-hatched. And those are the logs that take the brunt of the bullets, and they're of course higher than the gong targets. So as long as people stay on target, it should be an effective backstop. For these gong targets, I simply put together 3 pieces of scrap pipe with U-bolts, and I used the same hardware that I previously showed to hang gong targets off this frame. I use metal screws to attach the pipes to the metal angle iron frame. Gongs are fun to shoot because they give you immediate sight and sound feedback. I think you'd agree with me by now that my target hanging schemes and my backstops are pretty rudimentary, but I'm just trying to use materials that I find around the property and repurpose them. So the finished product doesn't always look that good, but they fit their intended purpose. So we have a little bit more to show you, so let's continue to look around. These are a couple of target stands that I use to put targets at various distances from the shooting station. You can see that this is just 2x4 construction, and it's coming out of some stands that I purchased from Midway USA. You can see that the 2x4s are held in there with those set screws, and then you can even use 1x4 in that hole right there. But when you get the target stand to the place that you want to use it, you can just go ahead and stabilize it into the ground using 4 tent pegs like that one. We have really sandy soil here at the farm, and so I can just push that into the ground, and I'd put 4 of them in there, and it will keep this thing from rocking. There's a couple of ways to secure targets on these frames. One is simply to use these wires that I've strung between the vertical supports, and then just clip the target on there with binder clips. And then I can pick this frame up, and I can move it to any distance from the shooting station that I want. I'll typically use this one for pistols. Here's another frame that we have, and typically what I do to hang these big profile targets is I simply staple them using a staple gun to these vertical supports. I've already put in a couple staples here. And so now I got a well-mounted profile target. So let's put these out on the pistol range and see what they look like. These targets are about 9 yards from the pistol shooting station. That's a good distance to practice from. We could put them all the way back to 20 yards if we wanted to. So we have a lot of flexibility where we move the targets with these stands. I've also taken out the gong target stand because I don't want to be shooting with that behind it and take the chance of hitting it and kind of messing stuff up. So how'd we do? This is the target that I used with the Smith & Wesson revolver using .38 special ammunition. And you can see that I've got a pretty good little grouping right in here. There's a little flyer there, but I've got 3 shots up there that weren't too good. And by the way, I took 12 shots, 6 of them were on camera. And I took 14 shots here with the 9mm XD9, and I did pretty well from 10 yards. Got a good, not super tight, but okay pattern right there. But I do have 3 flyers up there on top that I'm kind of dissatisfied with. This is the rifle side of our shooting range. You can see that we've got some shooting stands right here, a couple of them, so we could actually have 2 shooters at one time. And you can see that I've got a target set up out there at about 40 yards in case I want to do a little bit of close-in rifle shooting today. I do have a rifle with me. But one of the things that we did here is we made some shooting stools. That one's a medium tall one. That one is a tall one, and the one on the right is a short one. So the short one is used for the taller people, and the tall one is used for the shorter people. So we didn't have an adjustable seat that we could put out here. We simply made 3 stools at different heights. So I moved the target a little bit to the right to make sure it was centered with the 100-yard backstop. And now we're ready to take a couple of shots at it and see where it's hitting. We haven't sighted this rifle in for a while, so it may be a little bit off, but I don't expect it to be too far off. I'm not particularly satisfied with this at about 40 yards. So I need to do a little practice and also adjust the scope. It's shooting a little bit low and left at 40 yards, so I can't imagine what it's going to do at 100. So we'll work with it a little bit and see if we can get better. So why have a shooting range on your property? Well, because you can use it whenever you want. It doesn't get crowded. You have a lot of control safety-wise. You can have family events here. You can use it by yourself. You have a lot of flexibility. I think the biggest benefit of building a range is that you can take your time with practice. I wasn't satisfied with the 40-yard target that I was shooting with that .223 rifle. Yes, I could have taken it to a commercial range. There's some good ones that are out there. But typically when I go to a commercial range, I experience interruptions and tension that cause me to lose focus on my practice. So if you have access to a range that's either on your property or a friend's or a relative's, I highly recommend going out there because you can really focus and improve your shooting skills, and that's the whole idea. But there's some considerations that go in to putting a range on your property that you ought to look out for first. First consideration is where to put it with respect to existing structures and also things across the fence line. So what we did with this shooting range is we took a look at Google Earth and we located the shooting range in such a place that when we are shooting downrange, we're shooting into backstops for one thing, but then we're also shooting into hundreds and hundreds of yards of thick yaupon and heavy brush. So this is a look at the brush that's behind the 100-yard backstop, and you can see it's very thick with yaupon. And when I took a look at this on Google Earth to try and decide where to put this backstop and to locate this shooting range, I didn't see a structure on Google Earth for at least a mile beyond this point. So I think I'm pretty safe. There's hundreds and hundreds of yards of thick brush behind this backstop. So we figured between the backstops and between the thick brush and between that pretty substantial distance between us and that next structure, and there's some hills and valleys in between that as well, that we were pretty well safe to be able to locate our shooting range here. Well, you might be asking yourself, how do your neighbors feel about all that shooting? Well, I got to tell you, we're probably one of the places in this, I'll call it a neighborhood, that does the least shooting. There are shots being fired out here almost every day. So the neighbors are used to it, and you got to take that into consideration. It's a good idea to set some rules and boundaries. There's a lot that goes into actually operating a range. The primary objective for me is to have my family and my friends and my neighbors out there to have a good time and improve our shooting skills, but do it safely. Some other things that we could talk about are who's going to be allowed to go out there, how many people are you going to have in the shooting station at one time. You probably need to set a maximum. Are you going to have children out there, and if so, they need to be supervised. What types of guns are people going to shoot? Are you really going to shoot really high caliber weapons, or even something strange? It's just that we got to exercise common sense and make sure that we don't have accidents, that we practice fundamental gun safety. You'll be able to have fun with your family, fun with your friends, in an environment that's not so tense, but at the same time probably the safest environment that you can make it. So good luck with your design, and good luck with your contemplation of building a shooting range on your property. And if you're a guest of somebody at their property, please be on your best behavior. Let's give gun ownership a good name here in the good old USA. Well, thank you for watching today's episode of Corporate Gone Country. I'm an ex-corporate guy just trying to do country things. We very much appreciate your viewership. We hope that you'll like and subscribe. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the future.